Hi everyone, it's Lynn. So here's our Tuesday video that we're gonna draw our Crayola color for the week. But I just thought we'd chat for a little bit. I know that I ask you the question about how much fabric do you buy when you're interested in fabric, and I did get cracked up. Somebody called me out and they said, "You buy a bolt. We saw it, Lynn. You bought the whole bolt." And I was like, they're right. But it's rare that I buy bolt. One, because they're expensive. But two, I was going to make a few quilts out of that one. So I bought the bolt. Anyway, but here's how I kind of approach how much fabric I buy when I'm considering, when I don't know what I'm going to do with it. Like, because I think part of us, I think there's two types of people, right? There's the people who only buy the fabric for the quilt that they're going to work on next. And that's all they buy the fabric for. And they're not looking at, sorry, my iPad's going off. And they're not looking at what they're getting ready to, it's like they only work on one quilt at a time. So they only have fabric in their stash that is going to be used for the next quilt. And they don't really have a stash of fabric, or they're new and they don't have a huge collection yet. I have a pretty extensive collection. But that being said, I also, have been doing this for 25 years, for a while. And so, yeah, I have some fabric. Now, I will say that I kind of approach this on the whole, okay, so there's a ice cream place in the United States, and it's called Cold Stone Creamery. And what they do is they take you go in and there's all these different flavors of ice cream. And then they have what they call mix-ins. So it's like candy bars or fruit or, nuts or, different kind of things that they'll take the scoop and they'll put it on this cold marble stone. And then they mix in all the stuff. But their sizes for their cups of ice cream are like it, love it, gotta have it. And so I kind of look at my fabric stashes. Do I like that? Do I love that? Or do I gotta have it? And so that's kind of where I am with how much fabric I buy. So if I like it, I get a fat quarter. So I like it. It's cute. I'm probably gonna use it in a quilt where I'm using a bunch of other fabrics. So I've made 2 king-size quilts now that are, and we'll talk about this on another video because I don't want to go into the whole thing, but I make rules for myself when I'm making a quilt. And part of the rule for myself, and these are not quilt police rules, these are just Lynn rules, is I like to challenge myself when I'm doing a quilt on, can I make this color work together with a bunch of other fabric? And so, like one quilt I did, the quilt rule was, like, I have to use orange in every block, but I couldn't repeat an orange. So that became really interesting in that I was using a bunch of different oranges in the same quilt, but I didn't repeat any fabric. So when I was just using it for one block, all I needed was a fat quarter. So I have a lot of smaller fat quarters of oranges and just pieces of those fat quarters because that was like a king size quilt that I made. That I hand pieced, by the way. And I loved every minute of it. I really should do some more hand piecing. It's not something because there's so much prep to it that and sometimes I want to just sit down and sew at the sewing machine. I think that just relaxes me. I don't know. I like to hear the thump, 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 thump. Anyway, probably a weird Lynn thing. So that's my like it. Now, love it. If I love something, I'm going to buy a yard. And there's a couple of reasons that I would buy a yard. One, if it's a big print. If it's a big print on the fabric and it's got a lot going on, and I'm thinking that's going to be a focus fabric in the quilt that I want to make, I know it's going to be. Now, 9 times out of 10, just so you know, I do not use a pattern. Like, make stuff up as I go along, or I find a block that I like and I repeat that block for the whole thing. And I think we should go into that one day. Like, we should go into why blocks work together next to each other and kind of my decision-making process of that kind of thing. But if it's a big print or I know that I love it, I'm really attracted to it, and I don't know what I'm going to do with it yet, I'm going to buy a yard. Now, gotta have it is 3 yards. And what kind of like pushes me over the edge for 3 yards is if this fabric has a potential to be a border for me. Like, I really like it and I want it to be a border of something. 3 yards will, 9 times out of 10 make it a king size quilt. No, or not a king, queen size quilt. No problem. You would have no problem of making the borders that. And that's if you don't cut into the borders. Like, you just want one long strip on the borders. Then for me, yeah, it's a gotta have it. And that's 3 yards. So my kind of ratio in my head is a fat quarter, a yard, and 3 yards. And I'll be honest with you, lately I've been buying, especially because I've seen a bunch of fabrics coming out lately that kind of have a pattern on one edge of the selvage, but then fade out to where the top of the selvage is kind of a different pattern. So, it's really heavy on, like, design-wise on one part of the selvage, and it's not. Ombre fabrics do this. Then you're buying at least a half a yard, because you want the whole selvage to selvage look. And Tula Pink's really brilliant when she just designs her fabric, where she tries to make sure that you get every element if you just buy a fat quarter. And y'all know she's one of my favorite. She's brilliant. Just think she's great. And I love her Tuesday talks. Have you guys been watching her Tuesday talks? They're yummy good. So that's kind of my my thought process on. Oh, one more thing. When you do the borders, make sure if it's any print that you're thinking it could be a border and it has any kind of really straight graphic that's vertical or horizontal not so much, but very much vertical, that if you cut in it and sew it together and you don't match it up exactly right, that would draw your eye. You want to make sure that you buy enough to go the whole thing, which I know I've seen some patterns written where they're like, oh, you can cut 3 pieces and sew them together and that's your border. And I'm like, I want the whole thing as my border. So take that into consideration when you're looking at the print. There was an Argyle, one of the Christmas quilts I did, there was an Argyle print that I used for the border, which is right over there, actually. I think it's that one, that I bought a bunch of because when I first put it on, I wanted to it to be on the border, and I didn't buy enough of the fabric, and I ended up piecing it, and it drove me nuts because every time I hung it up on the design wall, my eye went to where that pieced line was, and it was because that Argyle was so specific. And there's a way to match those things up, but it's easier to just cut the whole piece and sew it on than to try to match that up. And then you get into the questions of what quilt. If it was a show quilt, I'm using one solid border. If it's a, quilt I'm gifting to someone, that may not be as important to me because it may not drive them nuts. Think about why you're doing it or what this quilt's for. Because, 9 times out of 10, there's just kind of 2 or 3 categories that your quilts fall into. For me, this is show quilt, so I got to do my best work all the time on it. Cannot lower the level of, perfection in it. Although I think sometimes you do because you're like, I'm sick of this. I know we all been there. We've all done that. And then there's, quilts that, this is going to be on the couch. So it's going to have dogs on it. In my house, it'll have dogs on it. if it's a couch quilt, because, you know, I'm on the couch, they're sitting next to me on the couch, they're going to be, you know, I'm going to have a quilt around me if it's cold like it is in February right now. And, you know, I've got one of the new puppies. He is so sweet. Oh my gosh. Y'all know I had 3 dogs. I lost one of my precious dogs in December. It broke my heart. I'm still getting over it. It has just devastated me and my husband. And she was my couch. She was my couch companion. Like, anytime I sat down on the couch, you know, we all have our favorite places. So I've got my favorite place on the couch. And anytime I sat down on the couch to watch TV or do something, she was right next to me. Josie was just right next to me. And the puppies weren't. Like, we have 2 younger Salukis, and they weren't next to me. And so it's funny now that she's been gone a couple of months, like, the male puppy, he's like, oh, Mama has a free side. I'm gonna snuggle up. And he doesn't just snuggle up to you, like, he literally lays on you. He's like, oh. And I think the 2 younger dogs they knew Josie's spot was next to Mom. So now they're like, hey, I can lay next to Mom now. I don't know. Anyway, I've just seen them lay next to both of us more so than when Josie was alive. I think she kind of established her territory. This is my couch, and I'm next to Mom. So anyway, we miss her tons. Oh, God, I miss her tons. She's still my screensaver. I look at her every day. Anyway, God's taking care of her. So that's that. My point was, there's, you know, different reasons that you have quilts. I mean, if you're gifting them to grandchildren that you want them to use the quilt, you know, that's going to be going through the washing machine so many times because, you know, children are messy and, you know, you're going to get stuff all over them and they'll have to be washed. So, you know, then there are some quilts that hang on the wall that will never see the washing machine because it's an art quilt and it would never survive a wash. Or there's, you know, antique older quilts that are fugitive and that don't have that kind of wear and tear. But, you know, just like the quilt I hung up behind me and the brown talk, that's one that I sleep with every night. I mean, that's what's on my bed and I sleep under it every night. So it has gone through the wash as needed. I don't wash it all the time. I mean, it's not like a regular sheet thing, but I think you just kind of have to think about that when you're making different quilts, but that's kind of off topic. So anyway, what else was I going to tell you? Oh, I haven't got to sew today. Today's not been a sewing day for me. I know, you sometimes wish you could, but what I've been doing today is, I have been setting up some merchandise kind of stuff with t-shirts and stickers and that kind of stuff. And I don't know if anybody knew this, but I did the lion's share of the graphics for the Stitch TV show, the logo. And I did I think all the images that were on the t-shirts and stuff like that. I did all those. So I'm kind of not reusing those. I'm making new ones. And so I've been doing that today. And so I've been drawing on my iPad, which I enjoy doing. So I found I used to do it in Adobe Illustrator, which is a great program and really a great way to do graphic design. But that being said, Adobe is you're stuck in front of a computer screen. Like, you can't do it. So my iPad, I found this new program called Procreate, and my sister-in-law, who's she's an art teacher, she kind of turned me on to it. And so I have been doing all the drawings on Procreate, which I really like. So I just finished one that says, every quilt comes with a hug. Let me see if I can. It may be backwards when I show it to you. I don't know. Da-da-da. It takes a second for it to come up. Here it is. This may be backwards. Every quilt comes with a hug. I think that's cute. So I'm doing that one, and then my husband gave me another saying, quilt like you mean it, so I'm going to do that one. So look for those later. You know, we'll have a a shop on my website that you can get stuff with the logo. So I've got logo and this stuff, and that's what I've been working on today. So you have to do that. And then the other thing I've been doing, or that I need to do today, is I need to finish a quilt that's on my long arm. So when we were doing the brown, I had the block that had the red in it, the brown and red. So that goes in a quilt. That was an extra block that goes in a quilt that's on the long arm that I need to finish up. It's got a hot cocoa kind of design on it, and I put Minky on the back. So I need to get it done because it's cold here and we should be using it on the couch. And that's going to be a couch quilt. So Finn and Phoebe will be snuggling with me on it. And it'll go through the wash. I mean, I already know what it is. So... And then the other thing I need to do, and I'm listening to a good book, and I think it's called The Postmistress of Paris. Is that what it's called? Anyway, I'll try to put that in the link if you guys are into. But I'm really into, and I think you all know this, I listen to books when I quilt, or I listen to Hamilton and music, or sermons. I listen to a lot of sermons. It's just a way to kind of distract myself or whatever. And so The Postmistress of Paris, I think, is the book I'm listening to, and it's really good. And I like the narrator, and that's big because if you listen to a book where the narrator is bad, it just, I don't make it through those at all. Nope. So that's what I'm doing. Oh, and I have to unquilt some things because I made and I've been putting this off, but I got to get it done. Because I don't enjoy it. And who enjoys unsewing? Like, nobody enjoys unsewing. So I need to rip out some seams of something I quilted. And it's, unfortunately, it was some batting was just bearding through the back where, all the fuzzies were poking through. And it just didn't look good. So I ended up taking it off the long arm, and I got to take out the stitches I already did. Luckily, it was just one pass. I caught it before I quilted the whole thing. I would have been sick if that would have happened. So I got to take those out and put that back on and finish that up. So anyway, Crayola. So just want you to know this too. Like, literally, I am drawing this on Tuesday. I have not pre-drawn this. I haven't thought about what we're going to do yet. I am looking at this as the first time you're seeing me look at this. And then when I film on Friday, it's 2 days later. So, and half that day on Wednesday, I'm busy with a meeting I go to every week. So I do a ladies' prayer and Bible study group on Wednesday mornings. And I really enjoy that. So, what are we going to have this week? And I'm not looking, just so you know, I'm not looking. Let's do this one. What's this one? Ooh. Granny Smith apple. Oh, good. I love Granny Smith apples. Those are yummy. That's my favorite apple, actually. That's a really pretty green. And I know we kind of talked this last week about how I'm seeing green all over the place. So I'm wondering, just because I know what a Granny Smith looks like, if it's not closer to that green here on the wrapper more than that. We know it's not this. I mean, I think I've learned that with the goldenrod and the brown. It's going to color out lighter than what that color looks like there. But Granny Smith apple, it makes me think of apples. Of course. Crayola's good at that, right? It makes me think of food. Granny Smith apple, that's what I make apple pies with. So that's my favorite apple for an apple pie. It reminds me of my dad, too. So my dad always liked sour apples, and I do too. Although his favorite were they called June apples, and I've never found those since then. I'm thinking that was a Southern Illinois thing. I don't know, but I vividly remember my dad and they were little too. They weren't like big. Like Granny Smiths are kind of big apples. They were kind of little, and you only got a surprise in June. You got them in June, and he would put salt in his hand. I'm sure this was so healthy for you. He would put salt in his hand and lick the apple and then put it in the salt and then take a bite, And I do like salted apples. That is a fruit that I would salt, especially if they're sour or tart. I like that. I like sour and tart things. Those are like two of my favorite things. But Granny Smith apple, green. Well, I think that's the color that's really popular this year that we're going to see a lot in design, in interior design. It makes me think of food, so that's interesting. And good memories, good memories. So what are we going to do with Granny Smith apple? I don't know. Someone put in the comment that they were making a green quilt and they didn't want it to be Christmas. So we'll definitely have to look at green where it's not necessarily Christmas. I think anytime you have a colors, like there are definitely some things that certain shades of that color evoke. That's very true. So I don't know. Granny Smith feels springy to me and summery because that's when you get the apples. So maybe that's tied into my head and thinking about it. But I think we can look at green with, definitely Christmas is a green holiday. So, but Granny Smith apple. All right. Well, be sure to think about what you would do with Granny Smith apple green. I don't know. So I'll have to look at that and think about how I would do that. And maybe if I even have a quilt that would have that in it. I do not know. All right, we'll find out on Friday what we come up with. I'm thinking about doing some go lives, but that's kind of down the road. I've got some new equipment, so we're trying to figure all that out. Hopefully we've gotten the sound right from the last video. I think we changed some things, and I think it's better. We just did some stuff wrong. We're sorry. I apologize. But again, trying to figure this out with new equipment. So there's that. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe. We really appreciate it. And it just helps me, get out there. And I just want everybody to enjoy, talking about color and see what we're doing and that kind of stuff. So I will talk to everyone on Friday. And we'll see what we can do with Granny Smith apple. All right. We'll talk to you later.